Hello, I'm David Cassidy with the weekly market summary for the week ending Friday, the 18th of June. The world's most important central bank, the Fed, was the week's main focus as policymakers met to decide on US monetary policy. The accompanying statement was much more hawkish than we had expected, especially the shift in the Fed's dot plot, which shows each policymaker's interest rate forecast for each of the next 3 years. In fact, the dot plot was a complete bolt from the blue. The median projection is now for 2 interest rate increases in 2023, up from none just 3 months ago, and 2 policymakers see 6 increases. Now, this big jump in the dot plot doesn't make any sense to us, as it doesn't match the very small changes they made to their inflation forecasts. 2022 inflation expectations are now 2.1% versus the 2% they forecasted in March, while 2023 forecasts remain unchanged at 2.1%. Moreover, the dot plot and inflation forecasts are now completely inconsistent with the Fed's targets. At the end of last year, the Fed changed its inflation target from 2% to one that averages 2%. This change was designed to allow inflation to overshoot 2% to enable it to make up for time spent running below 2%. Unless, of course, policymakers consider the current small inflation overshoot as sufficient to make up for the fact that inflation has averaged just 1.5% since the 2008-2009 global financial crisis. Furthermore, given that the Fed has stated that it would taper its QE, quantitative easing program, which is bond purchases, well before it increases interest rates, this dot plot would suggest that the, quote, "we aren't even thinking about tapering" can no longer be the case. Given the timelines, they must be discussing tapering. Mitigating this shocker, as we explained in our last market update, the dot plot is just a forecast and not a commitment. And incidentally, historically, the dot plot's track record at forecasting interest rates is poor, as policymakers have tended to be overly hawkish. Additionally, and interestingly, a couple of the more hawkish of the policymakers won't be voting members by 2023. Consequently, although global equity markets clearly didn't like the hawkish surprise and fell over during the week, we believe it is far too early to conclude that the current economic reflation is over and that we will see significantly higher interest rates in the coming years. This is because what the Fed says is often far more important than what the Fed actually does. And so we wouldn't be surprised if consumers' inflation expectations start to come back down, especially as supply bottlenecks and reopening demand are already starting to fade, thus allowing the Fed to keep its monetary policy accommodative and allow the employment market to fully recover. Looking ahead, this coming week, the focus is now firmly on each and every planned speech by a Fed policymaker, which include Jay Powell, Loretta Mester, James Bullard, Patrick Harker and Robert Kaplan. Additionally, we have a Bank of England monetary policy meeting, and it will be interesting to hear how all these policymakers view the recent economic and inflation data. Data-wise, we have US, UK, Eurozone and Japanese PMI, UK and Eurozone consumer confidence, US durable goods orders and US PCE, the Fed's preferred inflation measure. A busy week ahead, and we will of course keep you informed.